Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and with me I have two guests today, Heather Lee and Josh Newman. Welcome you two. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And we are here to talk about a Get Better journey. And I was with these two fabulous leaders a few weeks ago at our leadership workshop for our Transformational Leadership Program in Nashville, Tennessee. And at Convergence Coaching, we're on a Get Better journey, and we talk a lot about that with our talent leaders and our HR professionals and management teams that we're working with. And how can we make, incremental change, to get better? And these two individuals happen to be in a leadership program where they're making some incremental small changes on their Get Better journey, but also some big changes as they have been, going through an assessment process and setting goals and saying, how can we be better leaders and managers and change agents in our firms? And I thought I would invite them today to talk about their change journey and their Get Better journey and some of the insights that they're having and strategies that they are embarking on and actions that they're taking to be better leaders in the profession and in their communities and with their teams. So I very much appreciate you guys being here, Heather and Josh. And maybe we start out with just some brief introductions. You can share about yourself and your firm and your role in your firm. If we want to start there. And I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Heather, you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Tamera.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Heather Lee. I'm based in Houston, Texas, and I work for a firm named Weinstein Spira. I've been with the firm for 11 years. I'm currently a tax manager at the firm. I started my accounting profession in a year before that. I worked for a very, very small firm in Southeast Texas, 12 months, and then moved to Weinstein. So I am a true Weinstein Spira employee. All of my experience is with this firm. We're middle market. We have about 85 employees, and we're mostly Houston based. We do have some 100% remote employees, maybe Colorado, Georgia, I believe, and one of the Carolinas. But we have one office in Houston.
Perfect. Awesome. Great. Thank you and welcome. Josh, how about you?
All right, so I'm Josh Newman. I'm a tax senior manager at a firm called Ketel Thorstenson. We're headquartered out of Rapid City, South Dakota. I actually work in the Rapid City, South Dakota office. We're a top 200 firm in the nation, which often surprises people when you put South Dakota and top 200 firm in the nation in the same sentence. I actually think we might have fallen out of the top 200. It might be like 204 now, but so we're a decent sized firm practicing out of Western South Dakota. There's, maybe 20 partners and I think 150 employees in total. We have two other offices. They're smaller offices. One's 45 minutes north in Spearfish, South Dakota, kind of a smaller town. And then we have another one in Gillette, Wyoming that we've kind of been expanding practice into Wyoming.
Awesome.
I practice a lot out of our hospitality niche, which being in Western South Dakota, a lot of people think South Dakota ag, but Western South Dakota be more hospitality. And then I also am our tax workflow manager.
Great. Perfect. Thank you, guys. And thank you for that background and context. I think that's wonderful. And one of the things that when we engage or embark on a Get Better journey, there's some assessment that happens. And I know you two just went through a 360 assessment and a Myers-Briggs personality assessment. And I think that starts or sparks the journey about maybe some insights or new ways of looking at things, maybe some things you knew about yourself, but you have new perspectives or new ways to look at them. And I'm wondering if we could start about that, what insights did you guys have? And, how did that start to lead to changes that you could make? Where did you see that about yourself, your growth as a leader from that assessment process?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff in those assessments that maybe I felt like I understood a lot of it or already knew it ahead of time. But then there's also a lot of stuff that comes out of it that you're like, whoa, okay. And you take a step back and kind of think through it and see that there's different perspective on a few things. And, one thing in particular, I always figure myself to be kind of a confident person, and, my feedback reaffirmed that people perceive me as a confident person. And then as I've gone through a few more things, like I've noticed I tend to stay in my comfort zone on a lot of things too. So I don't know if that's really all that confident. And, I'll work with the same people, delegate to the same people. I've learned that I'm terrible for asking for help. And through the Myers-Briggs assessment, I learned that that's the P on the end of my score, that it comes down to the last minute on something oftentimes before I'll ask for help. It's, I think I can handle stuff until I realize I finally can't. And then my lowest rated leadership characteristics were all very interrelated. I think they were vulnerability, compassion, and curiosity, which to me I thought was really interesting, because it was, my first thought was, these are all things that mean you care about the people that are around you, which I've always thought I thought I do care about the people around me, but my lowest rated skills would say maybe you could care better about the people around you.
Yeah, and maybe demonstrate it in different ways, how we show it or how we lead with it. And I think you're also an introvert on the Myers-Briggs, right?
Extrovert.
Extrovert, yes. So as an extrovert and introverts, we all relate differently. How do we facilitate and lead from that? Or you have, more feelers, they have more warm up and rapport maybe than you do. So I think that's part of it, is just like perception, seeing it differently, and how do we, advocate for that. And I know on previous HR huddles, we've talked with, talent leaders and HR professionals about how do we make that rapport and that connectedness, and having those insights to say, how can I transform my relationships with my team members, and what can I do to shift it, is huge. So that's a great place to start. Josh, how about you, Heather? What insights did you have?
I think the biggest insight, I feel like I have adequate self-awareness, but the biggest insight is feeling, I'm an E, so I'm an extrovert and have an outgoing personality. That was probably my highest score, was the extrovertedness. The others were kind of in the middle, but the E was very, very strong. That said, that came out in my 360 evaluation significantly. And it just made me take a step back and think about reading the room and understanding the people that I'm working with, and finessing in a way where my communication is understood and embraced and appreciated, rather than being off-putting or scary or frightening. I recall a moment that I had with a new employee, and she said, you ghost zoom me. And I'm like, what does ghost zooming mean? And what she meant by that is, and this is an extroverted brain, I want to collaborate face to face. That came out in my assessment. And if I have a thought or I need to speak to someone, it was very natural for me to just Zoom someone unannounced. And, the introverts, that's a scary, scary thing. So just having that insight about myself and knowing the arena that I'm playing in, and understanding the different personality types, and finessing myself a little bit using some skills. That's been a very big insight for me.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing? You could say, is that a big change or a little change, but like it's a tweak in their approach to say, oh, they all don't like to just jump on Zoom and talk and have video on, right? And, some of us could go, how is that not possible? Like when we start to have these insights, like, what do you mean you don't think about it that way?
Right.
How do you not want to do that? And Heather, you come from a different background. Accounting is a second career right?
Correct.
And so the approach is, also different in how you work, and maybe more extroverts in your previous occupation with, it's 50-50. I don't know if you know that in public accounting of extroverts and introverts, but sometimes it feels like it's more introvert. I like to process things, that's how they approach it. The introverts do. So I think that's also been a shift for you. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, but just knowing you.
Yes. That it is, it's, it is 50-50. That said, you see ebbs and flows with the people that come in and out of public accounting.
Yes.
Right now it feels like 75-25 in the firm.
75 introverts.
75% introverts, 25% extroverts. So I feel that, the extroverts are way out. I mean, we're outnumbered significantly. But yes, I've got some experience in industry where all personality types and you for a big corporation, you have to exert yourself to be heard.
Yeah.
That's just it. And this is a totally different dynamic. So it's been interesting trying to navigate my relationships.
Yes. Very good. Well, and that's one of the things that we talk about, as we strive to get better, sometimes it feels like it could be monumental. And we'll talk about some maybe big changes or, things that you're, working to change. But it also happens in just small shifts. And you pointed to a couple of them already. But do you want to expand on what are some other incremental shifts or changes that you're making based on these insights and your self-discovery?
I'll go ahead. Yeah. So something that I've taken, and this actually came directly out of the Tamera, you mentioned the workshop that we had together in Nashville. Something that I've been working on is not jumping to the rescue of staff, is kind of how I put it so quickly. So often someone will come into my door, and the second they ask me a question, it's like, I have it pulled up on my computer and I'm working through it, and they're just standing over my shoulder, and all of a sudden we're done with a project, and they just stood behind me and watched me do it. And it's like, so I've really tried to focus on, anytime that happens, to stop and ask the questions. Okay, did you research it? What have you done so far? Okay, what could you do next? And instead of trying to get them to my answer, to try to help them get to their answer. So that's a small step that I've taken since our workshop here in the last couple of weeks.
That's awesome.
So the workshop, one of the biggest takeaways, or for small incremental steps, is practicing active listening in every interaction, reining in my inner voice. That's a big one for me. I feel like I'm my own worst critic for sure. And, just trying to every day practice the behaviors for a more positive inner voice, or not listening to that inner voice. That's a big one for me. Significant. And the third item is highest and best use considerations. So thinking about that in my day-to-day, where, I am someone that is going to, like some people say, take the bull by the horns, or just get the job done, push and get something done. And I don't know that I'm often using the highest and best use of my time. So just being mindful of that and thinking about that in all of my interactions, and thinking about things that I can delegate that I really shouldn't be doing, that's another one that I'm working on for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we all work at our highest and best use, then we are all going to maximize what the results we're able to produce. Mm-hmm. Otherwise it limits us. Yes, could I do that? Yeah, I could swoop in and do it. Or Josh, could you just take it back? Your example. Yes, you could. But first of all, it doesn't develop them. But second, it could unempower people. Mm-hmm. It could show, a perception of lack of trust, maybe not intentionally, but we could have that lack of trust, and so we don't want to disempower people or, not create this culture of ownership. If I know you're going to swoop back in and do it,
Right.
Heather's got it or Josh has got it, then that's what we create.
It absolutely gives the opposite effect. You think you're helping someone, but actually people want to feel empowered and they want to own projects. And so, yeah, that's something I've really been battling recently is how do you give that sense of empowerment to those below you?
Yeah.
So that when the culture of ownership, that one of the documents that you provided in this leadership program, it was a list of catchphrases of not to say that hinder empowerment and ownership. And when I opened up the document, I use every one of them. So
what was one example?
Just do your best. Help me with this.
Help is one for sure.
Help me with this. Just try your best. That one I was like, whoa, okay. All right. The message has been, I heard the message. So yeah, that was a really, really good reference for us, for our team, for sure.
That's awesome. And sharing it with your team, right? Like that's one of the ways. And say, I need to be more specific. I can see I'm not specific. Because your definition of doing your best or helping, by the way, is your definition, but it might not be what I'm expecting. And so how do we convey that? And, talking about those clear expectations will get better, more consistent results, have less gap in there, when we do that. So that's awesome. That's huge. Well, what about are there any large leaps that you have made or maybe are making that you are working on? And it might be a little bit less than these quick hits that you've been sharing, which make a difference. And they all add up. I think that's the thing. Like when we transform, it's like all of a sudden you're going to look back and go, oh my gosh, all these things added up. But are there any, bigger leaps that you're making?
Josh, I'll go if you want me to go ahead and go. So I'm going back to the highest and best use of our time, and in considering that for like the firm perspective, thinking about leadership and where we spend our time and what we do on a day-to-day. I feel like the big leap is going to be eliminating a 1 hour scheduling meeting that probably 40% of our tax department attends. So, being able to utilize a scheduler in that capacity, so leadership can focus on collaborating and mentoring and developing and coaching and things that are higher and better use of our time. That's a big leap for our firm, and hopefully I will be tackling that in the future.
That's exciting. And that's a process change and a mindset change. And I'm going to call it a trust change, right? I have to trust another individual to do the scheduling and trust that it's going to get done, and trust the process, and trust our communication, trust intentions. And then I can focus on other things like you listed, so that I can coach our people, develop our people, et cetera. And I think that's what we do as leaders, is bring people along those phases of change. And that's why it's a bigger leap, right? Because it has all of those things along with it. It's great. Well, you have to keep us posted on how that progresses. So, and even just bringing it back and having the courage to say, hey, I think this could make a difference for us. I know it might feel scary and not comfortable because it's not how we've always done it, but here's what I think it can provide.
Right.
Josh, how about you?
Yes, for me, so something I didn't share in my background is that I spent my first 4 years practicing in our audit department. Halfway through, switched over to the tax side. So for me, when I switched over to the tax side, I took on a role with a lot of our bigger level 1, level 2 type clients, but I was doing preparation work and kind of lower level work for someone that had been here at our firm for 5 years. And so in the last few years, I've, just continued to do preparation work and some low-hanging fruit on a lot of those clients. So something that I've really been pushing now is to, and it kind of piggybacks, I guess, on the highest and best use, that comment. But something I've been pushing is to really push my workload to something that makes sense. As okay, what does a tax senior manager do? Well, maybe they shouldn't be preparing X% of returns during this time of the year, or that sort of thing. So I've been moving clients down, to those below me and taking on bigger roles or reviewing or different things there, moving clients that don't make sense for me, not preparing tax returns that I sign, things like that, really letting go of projects that I can let go of. So that's something that I feel like I've been taking big steps on.
Yeah. And again, huge, because you know how to win and succeed doing what you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to take this leap of faith that says, I'm going to trust somebody else with these clients and these engagements, and that I'm going to win and succeed at this different level. Right. So that's where the leap is.
Mm-hmm.
And highest to best use. Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
It's always interesting in accounting because you get promoted, and probably a lot of other fields, but you get promoted because you were good at one thing. And then once you get promoted, it's
something new.
Something else. That's not what you do anymore.
Yeah. And that's why we say we're on this Get Better journey, right? We're on this Get Better journey, and we have these different, places of transformation in our lives and in our careers. So what worries or concerns did you guys have to overcome?
So one thing is, as I move up, I've had worries that maybe relationships with those that I pass or that are below me in rank or things like that, that maybe those relationships would change. So that was one thing that I kind of thought of when we were brainstorming what worries I'd have. And the other big one is just learning to overcome the fear of letting projects go, and allowing those around me to grow. And instead of, I know I can do this well, but how many times do you need to do it well before someone else can do it well and you can review it, or before someone else can do it and you can only just communicate it to the client when it's done, or,
Yes.
Things like that.
Awesome. Heather, how about you?
Yeah, letting go of stuff and allowing others to own delegated assignments. Letting go is challenging for sure.
And it probably ties back to reining in your inner voice.
Yes.
But all your conversation and fears about what would go wrong and what if, and, that's a place to really manage that inner dialogue. Just to tie back to what you said earlier.
Absolutely. That's one on the list. That is absolutely number one for sure. The inner dialogue.
Yeah. Yep. Well, as we wrap up, what recommendations or things do you want to impart or share with the people listening here? They could be talent leaders or HR professionals or just other professionals in the accounting about this idea of Get Better journey and transformation.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go. So my recommendations are, number one is when you start this process, seek feedback from atypical people. So my point is that friends / colleagues that you're close to, you probably know how they feel about you, and hopefully you have developed a good enough relationship with those type of people that, they've provided feedback to you already. So there won't be significant insights there. There will be some, but seek feedback from atypical colleagues. That's number one. Number two, have an open mind when you receive your 360 feedback. Try to remember, what are your team members really trying to tell you? Being defensive and that's not the purpose of this program, and it's going to hinder your development. So be very open-minded and remember, what are your team members really trying to tell you? Third, before you set your goal, consider your resources and the time of the project, and think about your personality assessment and the assessments of others when developing your team for your project. And fourth, dive into how others think and communicate so that you can effectively work with others.
Like get their thought process, understand, ask how are they picturing something or their perspective of it.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I had a couple of things, and the first one. So I've always been someone that kind of maybe keeps his cards close to his chest. Like I don't share a lot, and so making it known to others around you, maybe those above you, that leadership is something you want to move up, you want to transform. Because when I've been intentional about letting those around me know what I want, it feels like I have had so much more support, particularly in our firm, from those in leadership roles already, and sharing things that they've done to get to those places, and conversations that I maybe didn't think would ever happen, because people are willing to open up and give you more information, and all because you just share with them where you want to go. And then this is one that Heather kind of already hit on this one, but just be willing to accept things. And this goes specifically back to the 360 feedback that we did through the TLP program, and getting feedback from numerous folks around your firm and that you work with, and you learn a lot of things about yourself, some good and some bad, and some of the bad I already knew, and some of the good I already knew, but not all of it. And essentially, you just gotta accept it and let it push you forward.
Yeah, and know it's shared with care and commitment for your success.
Mm-hmm.
That you're valued and respected, and that's why people are willing to share it with you. And I think that's just in a feedback culture in general, if we can just be really open and receptive to feedback, no matter if it's in a formal process like this, or it's on engagements, or it's how do we do better on our busy season next time, or whatever it might be. How do we just continue to improve and have that openness to be able to receive feedback? That's huge. Awesome. Well, I very much appreciate both of you joining me today, and thank you for sharing your journeys. And I can't wait to hear, some of the outcomes and what's next. And thank you, everybody else, for tuning in and listening. And we look forward to seeing you again on next week's HR Huddle. Have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.